Hi, everyone. Welcome to Journeys with PDA Coffee Chat podcast, where we seek connection, community, and co-regulation while discussing all things PDA. Hi, and welcome to Journeys with PDA Coffee Chat podcast. I'm Heather.
And I'm Carissa. Today we have with us Suzanne Gunn from the Motherload Neurodivergent Family Sleep. She is a certified infant and family sleep specialist.
And we are really excited to be talking about sleep. Thank you for being here again with us, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me back. So I am a mother of two children, both with PDA, autistic, ADHD, neurologies. Through having those, I realized that I am also autistic and ADHD. And I managed to take my personal lived and parenting experience into my sleep specialism and working on a non-medical practice of supporting and consulting on neurodivergent family sleep. Yeah. I'm like, what else? What else do you want to know? Do you want to know like my life history? I'd love to give it to you, but no.
So, how are you doing today? How are things going?
Well, I didn't sleep very well. I would never, as soon as I start any conversation with anybody, I really want to just like, oh, so how did you sleep? And actually, I would love to share with you how I slept, because I think this is, I mean, like, we're all humans, children, adults. There are differences within the ways that we sleep, but not hugely. This is something that I see impacting a lot of kids. So I have sensory difficulties, and that comes up in food. And I have ADHD, so I forget to eat. And so then I usually get to the end of the day and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't eaten yet today. And I know that when I don't eat all day, I get a rubbish night's sleep. There is really good reason to that. So it's not even just about if you don't sleep all day, but there are certain parts of sleep that's actually really metabolically costly to our brains. And essentially that's dreaming state. That's when we dream in REM sleep. And our brain needs a good steady supply of glucose to do that. And so if you have issues with either your glucose stores or that you are using up a lot of glucose in the day, then this is likely to impact sleep. So two ways that can happen. For me, it was not eating enough throughout the day. Even though I did have like a big meal at the end of the day, it wasn't enough to keep me going through the night. Or if you or your child is frequently stressed or otherwise like activated, it could be in a positive way. If they're like excitable throughout the day or stressed throughout the day, it uses up a lot of glucose. So usually I find that this comes up at around 3 a.m. So if I wake up at around 3 a.m., I know it's because I haven't eaten enough. And I can kind of pinpoint it to that because in the latter part of the night, we tend to do more of our REM sleeping, dream sleeping. At the beginning part of the night, that's when we do the majority of our deep sleep. So yeah, I didn't have enough. And first off, I woke up and I was like, I'm going to have a banana. And then I went back to bed and I was like, that's not enough. And my brain started ruminating on things that I had to do today. So then I woke up because I was hungry. Then my thoughts kicked in. And in the end, I had to go and I went outside. I looked at the stars and I ate a load of sliced turkey. And I just sat there with the dog outside looking up the stars because I know that if I lie in bed and I just try to sleep, it's actually more frustrating to me
Mhm.
because I want to move. I'm worried about waking people up.
Mhm.
I did that. I went back to bed and I know, because I know me, that I went to sleep quicker having got out of bed, eaten, done something else until I felt good enough to like get back to bed than if I'd either stayed in bed or if I had got up, had something to eat, and then went straight back to bed. So I had a rubbish night's sleep, but it's something that I'm really happy to share with you, that because it helps
There,
to know.
there are some really, really just absolutely fascinating points with this. And I'm also so excited because I'm like, oh, I did not know these things. So first off, I very, very often get busy and I don't eat well during the day. Um, and I very, very often wake up at about 3 o'clock. Um, and and so it's really, really interesting to know that like there's reasons why your body and your brain are doing this. And it's
Yeah.
also really interesting. I don't usually get up and eat because I've never correlated it with any kind of like hunger, but I do know that I have to I usually get up and go to the bed and maybe drink some water or go to the bathroom. I do have to move my body though. And so the next thing that's absolutely fascinating is how many times do we tell our children, do not get out of your bed in the night? Don't do it. And that's like something that we really enforce. And so it's really interesting that they do need to get up in the middle of the night. And so we in my family, we actually do encourage, especially my youngest, we do encourage him to get up out of bed. He has a lot of sensory issues with eating and does not always eat really consistent. And so just yesterday he said, hey, all of my cereal is gone. I had to get up in the middle of the night and eat it. And I was like, thank you for getting up and taking care of yourself and for eating. And so, yay, now I have I have science to back that up.
Yeah.
Science.
I love it as well how he got up and he ate because, I mean, one, with our kids, when there's sensory things going on, quite often that's that interoception, and we might not be picking up on our hunger. But also, even if our interoception is online, if we are trying to stay in bed and stay still, sometimes like we need that ghrelin in our bellies to kind of move around to help that belly to rumble for us to be able to know that we're hungry. So like a lot of the times, it's really hard to figure out that we're hungry. So I love it that he did that. I really do. If it's something that is like an ongoing thing, I quite often suggest to families that they keep some snacks by the side of the bed, and do it, do it that way. I know that there's often concerns about teeth, or that our kids will like eat even when they are not hungry, but I think they need to sleep. So I'm like, what choice? Let's just make some choices. See what
So
you feel like.
if it's okay, I'd like to go back and touch on 2 points that you did mention. The first was the REM sleep. I just want to put it out there. It's my understanding that REM sleep is where our brain processes new information. and stores it into, like, it takes our short-term memory information and then stores it into long-term information. And
Exactly.
am I on the right track with that?
Yeah, absolutely spot on.
Right. So, it's really important. What I'm trying to say is REM sleep is very important.
Yeah.
Um, just for those people who are, listening out there and going, well, what if we're doing our deeper sleep, isn't that more important than our, deeper sleep earlier in the
Mm,
night? Isn't that more important? And it's not. We really need that REM. We really need that REM
mm.
sleep. Um, and then my second point was, um, so I'm an ADHDer, and unfortunately, I don't have the characteristic where I forget to eat during the day. But I do have the characteristic of waking up. Usually I sleep for a couple of hours and then I'm wide awake, and I usually go down and have a snack. And I never knew why. Until, like, right, there was a huge light bulb moment when you said that. So my
Yeah.
question is, what's the best food to have on hand? Like, should we eat something before we go to bed? And what would be the best thing? And then when we do wake up in the middle of the night, what is the best nutrition to put in our body so
Mm.
that we can facilitate the REM sleep cycle?
So, I mean, we always look at what is the optimum and then, what's accessible to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, always the next best thing going down. Um, and to like pull us into like, the optimum would be something like something that contains like tryptophan. So, I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
like turkey. I'm just my mind has gone on a bit of a blank now. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
no
I've been put
worries.
on the spot. What are these things? But so like turkey slices, or even like I want to say oats. Some like you've got to think like some people have a lot of sensitivities around food. So oats, like cherries. Why have my mind gone blank? I want to say yogurt. Um, but we always go to what's an accessible food because for our kids especially, but us too, like we've been sleeping and it might be hard to even contemplate putting something like cold and wet in our mouths. Like that might be something that's just not appropriate. And then what about the next best thing would be a nut flour based cracker or something like that, right? The next best thing would be, you know, other types of crackers. If that's something like, usually that's at the bottom level, that like, if we need something that's accessible for our kids, usually it's like something bland and just like a cracker. If that's not, like, going up a stage would be a banana or like something like, and then we think about like bringing in coldness if that's an option. And then maybe that is like, sliced turkey or like, yogurt from the fridge or, something like that. But essentially, it's anything, just so long as we try and stay away from like heavily processed, sugary foods. But saying that, like, if they can't do food, could they do juice? Could they do like milk, like a nut-based milk or a dairy-based milk if they can do dairy? Like always just like what's the next best thing? So the best thing would be like optimum foods. The like going all the way down is like food, but just isn't what we would consider to be like nutritional in value.
Sure.
And then it's like drinks, like could you do like a fruit juice or a milk or something like that? I would suggest like a watered down fruit juice. But yeah,
So the whole have some warm milk so you can go to sleep is a real thing. It's not just a wives' tale.
um yes, for a few reasons, as well as like the, bringing in your own natural stores of melatonin and things like that. However, I have never ever done warm milk.
Yeah,
It
I
is
can't.
it is
I just don't. I don't
Yeah.
understand it. I could drink cold milk right before I go to bed, but not warm milk. It's
Yeah.
just
And
no.
then
Mhm.
just so that I don't get off track with this bit
Okay.
was so food before bed. So we know that heavy meals before bed is like a big no-no. But especially if it takes a really long time to do bedtime, then if you're having tea at like, so your evening dinner, at like 6 p.m. and then your child doesn't go into bed, even like at 9 p.m., that's actually quite late. So yeah, bring in a snack then. I would say to like make sure that you have something to eat at least 2 hours before going to sleep. And personally, like especially my youngest child who is really sensory averse, he has snacks in bed. Like literally, he's in bed, he's got the blankets on, we are eating a snack as we are having last stories. And that we just tend to do like sliced fruit, anything that's accessible to him at that time. If he wants something really sweet, then I tend to do like sliced apple with cinnamon, just like cinnamon powder on the top, and that both helps to so cinnamon actually helps to regulate blood sugar levels, so to stop having like such a peak, because if you have like all your sugar coming in quick and then it's going to drop, whereas adding in some cinnamon to it, it should help to level it off, to try and make that easeful. But yeah, like I know that there's a lot of things, oh, you shouldn't eat too close to bed, but it's actually shouldn't eat too heavy a meal too close to bed, because your body needs to do other things rather than digest. But you do need something in there. And I mean, it's usually not a thing because, a lot of kids eat enough through the day to keep them going. But also like many kids, and usually neurodivergent kids, or at least like usually sensory, or ADHD kids, because there's like better things to do than sleep and eat, right?
Those
Yeah,
are
definitely.
yeah, that's just complete. That's so fascinating, and those are such great suggestions, and it just makes me kind of think about like what a great way to do something so small to support my kids so that they can
I
rest
know.
better. Um,
Yeah.
and I love how you are saying like he's eating the snack in his bed. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of pushing that out of the box approach to supporting our kids, where it's like, you have to come sit up in the kitchen, and maybe it's noisy or whatever. And so kind of just like meeting them where they're at. And that means that maybe they are eating some sliced apples um in their bed. And so much of this is kind of like saying, like, go ahead and step out of the box, and like, you are going to have to do things different. And so I think my guy was eating like Chex cereal in the middle of the night, but also one of his top safe food is just like the most basic potato chips,
Yeah.
which, no, those are not healthy. Those are not good for you, but it's a
Uh,
food that he can access. It's a food that he
yeah.
can eat. And it's something that
Yeah.
he can get to in the middle of the night. It doesn't take any prep. He doesn't have to turn the lights on. He can eat it right from the bag. And so, always with us, the approach is eat what you can eat when you can eat it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's super important when it comes, to us. So those are just those are such incredible tips, and they're so helpful.
Thank
And
you.
even like
Yeah.
as an adult, so like it applies to an adult
Yeah. Yeah.
that we need that
The
too.
other thing, yeah, and the other thing is that I mean, like, I could go off on like some major tangents with this because I feel like when we relax around things, it makes, making better choices, like healthier choices, more accessible. And one of those things is that when they're able to access safe foods, And especially if we are tired, we are primed to go for like stimulating foods like fats and sugars and stuff like that. That's our body's craving. And especially add in, I mean, like when you are tired, do you want to eat a salad? Because I don't. Like, that's not my go-to. And so if I have that like safety around it without that like pressure, then it just opens the way up to then be able to access things later on when we're feeling better, when we're able to feel like we have more capacity. Then we can go and make those other choices, which are more like whole foods and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm not a nutritionalist, but I can tell you it's probably better for sleep on so many levels. I know that, like, yes, you need to eat well to sleep well. But going back to like what we were discussing last time, we need that baseline of that foundation of mental health, safety, signals of safety in our environment to be able to access like quality sleep.
So last time when we chatted with you, we kind of touched a little bit on teenage sleep. And so Heather and I both have a teenager who both are PDA. So teenage sleep as a neurotypical teenager, I think that's like a challenging developmental place to be in. And then we're going to throw in, the neurodivergent brain and PDA, and you're really compounding this sleep. And I think that there's like parents sort of panic around sleep. Everyone wants to sleep well, and there's this pressure about like, I need to sleep well and I need to make my kids sleep well. And anytime that you want to make a PDAer do something, you're gonna come up against some
You put a barrier in, aren't
roadblocks.
you? Yeah.
So
It's like that is the roadblock. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to kind of just let's talk a little bit more about teenage sleep. So my daughter is 13. She is a PDAer. She also is ADHD. She is a busy, high energy girl. She's got a lot going on. She's creative and she's crafty. And so she is also homeschooled. So we do not have the pressure that other families may have to get up at a specific time in the morning. And so kind of what's happened is she is a night owl and she is up at night. And so yeah, she is up some I don't even know exactly what time, because I am not a night owl and I go to sleep, and she knows that. And
it's because you're not 13. Yeah.
And I'm not 13. And I frequently tell her I am an old lady who needs sleep. So I'm like, girl, like, you can do your things, but you got to let this mama sleep. And but so we sort of are letting her run free. And we kind of are like, please don't leave the house. And don't wake up anybody else. So that's like, those are kind of like the rules that we've put around sleep right now. And and she's okay with those two things. But she is up a lot at night. And she's also sleeping later in the day. And so I kind of wanted to like set the stage of what can PDA teenage sleep look like. So that's what my home. Heather, let's talk about what is teenage PDA.
Can I just ask?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Carissa, do you mind me just like clarifying one question? What time does she typically wake up in the day?
Oh, well, good question. It can often be Noon or 1 p.m. when
Okay.
she's sort of, I call it surfacing.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that she may be waking up like earlier, say like 8 a.m., maybe at 7, and she is going back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can be noon or 1 o'clock before she's really like out of her room and awake.
Yeah. Okay. And then Heather, what's
So,
your
so we kind of discussed this a little bit in our last
yeah.
chat with you. My son has a cycle of pretty
Oh
much,
yeah.
yeah, he's got 3 weeks of kind of being, I hate to use the word normal um, or even typical, but where he is going to sleep, I would say probably 9, 10 at night and getting up, around 7, 8 in the morning. But then after about the third week, he kind of transitions to more of we usually have one night where he doesn't sleep at all. And then he will go to sleep during the day and sleep a good 9, 10 hours. And then we have a kind of a week of that where he's staying up at night and he's sleeping during the day. His father has the delayed sleep. What is that cycle? What is delayed sleep?
Delayed sleep phasic syndrome.
Thank you. So my
Yes.
husband has that. It is highly likely that my son does too. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and that's
sorry.
just kind of how that's just what our life is like.
Yeah. Can you remind me how old your son is?
He's 13.
13. Oh yeah, 2 13-year-olds. Okay. Isn't it funny how you have two children of the same neurology on paper, and they're so different. They are so
Yeah.
different, and we
Hmm.
can't. Yeah, I mean, like every person is unique, regardless of neurotype. So,
And just to add this little bit of information as
mhm,
well, we homeschool unschool. So
perfect.
again, we don't have to conform to any kind of
Mm,
outside
yeah.
schedules.
I remember you saying about, was it that you were putting him on the bus for school? It's something ridiculous, like
Oh, it was
7
it was
p.m.
stupid. I mean, it was a stupid. It was and the more I thought about that, I think I it's
Regardless of
been such a
neurotype,
long time.
it's
Maybe
not worth
it may not have been as early as 7, like I said before, but it was early.
I mean, like I've heard of other people with the same issue, and basically, like, I mean, there are people who campaign against that, right? Because it's not biologically sound for anyone. Oh, unless you have the other circadian rhythm, quote unquote, disorder, which really is just a difference. Which is the more socially acceptable one, which is advanced sleep onset. And that's where you typically need to go to sleep at, like, I don't know, like 6 to 8 p.m. And then you wake up at like 4 a.m. And that's your normal. And I mean, it's really sucks if you have like a couple of children and one of them is an early onset and the other one is a delayed onset. So, I mean, so many different bits. First off, let's go Carissa. So, waking up at 13 years old, waking up at 12 to 1 p.m., I would actually say, like, it feels very normal. It feels like very much in the range of, like, at least what I see, right? Being like, working amongst like divergent neurotypes. Um, and I was when you said about like late and the pauses, like you were concerned about saying what it was. I was expecting you to say like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. So I think it's completely, I want to say acceptable. That's the wrong word. I want to say uh
I
begins with
I
A. Appropriate.
Oh,
Appropriate,
okay. I was
kind
gonna
of.
say, to me, that is acceptable. Um,
Yeah,
but it is appropriate.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's
You've got
I
so
guess
many
it's
things.
acceptable to me because I'm like, I'm doing my own thing and I accept it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And doesn't it feel good to like rebel against
Mhm.
against the mainstream oppressiveness? But I mean, there's so many things going on. So one is that, she might just be like a late, like a night owl anyway. And especially with creative people, they tend to feel very creative in those like night at like later hours. You add in teenagehood, and that brings delayed sleep phasic differences anyway, regardless of neurotype. It just does. That's it. Like in the developmental path, like the biological, developmental path of human beings, our circadian rhythm changes as we age, and it gets really late for teenagers. So I know, like, especially if we are struggling to get our kids to school in the morning, then we might be really, really stressed out. Because like, oh my gosh, they got to wake up in the morning, but I have to get them to go to sleep early. But of course you can't, because their body clock will not allow them to go to sleep at that point. And so if we are trying to put that pressure on them of going to sleep early, or at least earlier than what their body is ready to do, then not only is that going to be really tough for them anyway, but then add in that PDA piece of this expectation that they cannot meet, and then that is going to provoke quite a stress response. Then I'm just thinking, I mean, the school bit is the bit that I really struggle with, because the schooling system is just not it's just not appropriate for our kids, like the timing and stuff. So I'm super happy that you both have your kids out of school and they're able to go, like you say, about like free range, free roaming. So in non people with non-24, which that is essentially like a roaming circadian rhythm, which is more than 24 hours, that they are not able to adjust with the environment. They call that free running. So I just wanted to take it away from that term, because that term means something else. But it's really normal. And the thing is they will grow out of it. They will grow out of that. So by the time they're in their like late teens, early 20s, they're going to start getting to sleep earlier. And then you're in your 30s, and when you look back on like when you used to go out partying and you in your like early 20s, and you used to start at like used to leave the house at midnight, and then when you're in your 30s, you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I want to be tucked up by 9:30. But there's that. But then there's also the fact that
that's me.
PDA brings such a burden of other people's expectations, and it's not just the people around them, but it's also society at large. And when everybody else is asleep, the world is so much more peaceful, enjoyable, and quiet. And if you have an ADHD brain that takes in all of the stimulus, then the nighttime might allow you to focus on what you want to focus on, rather than what the world is imposing their things on. And I think that it brings a great deal of rest for a lot of kids, a lot of people in general. Like you go, like I was talking about how I went out and I was like eating sliced turkey under the stars last night, and it's just because it's like it feels like a different world outside. And if we have such a difficult relationship with the world outside in the daytime, the nighttime can bring us to nature. It can bring us to just like that feeling of relief. And the next piece is, so Carissa, you have a creative and crafty girl who likes to sleep a lot in the morning, and she might be experiencing a lot of vivid dreams. And that is very enjoyable, especially for creative and crafty people. So she might be kind of like choosing to go back to dreamland because it's quite a fun and exciting land. And she might even be having some like creative aha moments that's going to be inspiration for later on. So as of for like, how might you bring her back to a more sociable timing? I'm sorry, I like, you can do a lot of tactics and stuff. I mean, like, you don't want that. I can tell, like, you're happy to let her do her thing. And I think that what you're allowing her to do is you're allowing her to thrive and to be able to, like, all of teenagerhood is like trying to figure yourself out, isn't it? Like your whole brain changes. It's like the like caterpillar going to mush in the cocoon, and like you're like developing, and it's hard. And what you're allowing her is a lot of peace. You're allowing her a lot of an opportunity to be able to figure herself out, and that source of enjoyment, that creativity. So the times when she's likely to be more creative, and I'm just going for the typical in the neurotype, this might be different for her, obviously, is it tends to be at the latter part of your wake cycle. And she's going to be accessing all that creativity, and if that creativity is going over into the time when she might want to be sleeping, I mean, physically talking, it's better to go to sleep. However, is it going to cause long-term damage and harm for her to be like going in and expressing her creativity and like doing what could be marvelous works of art? Like so many artists, writers, all the people, they create their best things at nighttime. Like I was just flicking through Sally Catt's Sleep Misfits
Oh yeah,
and
I just
going,
bought that.
oh, it's good. It's really great. And as well,
I forget we're a podcast too, but I'm holding it to, so we're both, so Susanna and Heather are both holding up Sally Catt's Sleep Misfits book.
and in there, she has in there like famous people who have like non-24, and a lot of them are like, I mean, the one was Churchill, who he tended to do all his speeches in the like 3 a.m. and people considered him lazy because he was in bed reading the newspaper at like 10 a.m. or like midday, but he wasn't. He was just like very, very productive in the early hours of the morning. And the same with Hitler, but also artists and musicians and all that type of thing. So I often see when I talk with families with children who have like more on the extreme side of sleep wake patterns, there does seem to be a huge correlation with a vast amount of creativity and the energy to apply their creativity to something. Because like usually we go through a pattern of burnout finding out about PDA. I mean, like, that tends to be it, doesn't it? And how frustrating is it to be in that body that literally does not have the energy to do anything, and the mind that's slowly coming back online of being creative and unable to do that creativity because life is just so costly to them, like on a body budget side. And then often the time when we can most access the energy is when the world is quieter. So there's that. I'm a huge proponent of like homeschooling, unschooling, because of sleep, actually. Even, I mean, it's such a shame that there wasn't more accessible schooling for when kids need to sleep, because sleep really does need to come first. And how on earth, going back to Heather, as you very rightly pointed out, you need your REM sleep, which is the earlier out, like it's the late part of your sleep. If you are having to wake up early and you are not allowing your memory stores to open up, And then you go to school and they're trying to teach you stuff. How are you going to retain that information when, going back to science, like when your hippocampus is full? Your hippocampus is full. That's the short-term memory. And your brain is like, you have all these memories, and it's not like your hippocampus is really well organized. It's not. It's just like jumbled in this one bit. And essentially, like, if our brains are a computer, like we think about like old school computers and remember like having to like defrag because your computer was like going too slow. And then you saw the like visual of like all the different color bars in all different spaces. And then you put it in that defragging process, and then you have all the colors nicely like all together, all the one color together, all the next color together. And then you had that free space. That's essentially what sleep is doing, right? So like, when you have that computer who like, is going really slow, that's us as like people who either are not doing a lot of REM sleep, and that's like the earlier parts, or not sleeping enough. I'm sure there was another piece to that, but my ADHD brain just went, boop, gone.
If I could just real quick, if there are any families out there and you do have your child in school and they are struggling with attendance, or you are struggling with getting out the door in the morning, if they are on an individualized education plan, is what we call it in the States here, or even a 504 plan, you can have things written in as accommodations into the IEP where your child can have a different school schedule. Maybe they are going to go into school an hour later. Maybe they will leave an hour sooner. Maybe if your child didn't sleep at all, the parents will have the ability to say, my child's not going to school today based on, they didn't sleep. And, it can be written where it's not any kind of truancy issue. It's one of those things where you really have to work with the IEP team in the school and don't be afraid to push the system if they say no, because that is an accommodation, that is a need.
It's a basic need
to accommodate their disability. So I kind of wanted to insert that as well. There's ways to make their system work.
Yeah. And I gotta be honest, this is also like, it's a sticky point for me, because I know there are a lot of people need their kids in school so they can go to work. And how does this fit? I'm very, very acutely aware of my privilege of being able to stay at home and do flexible working. And it's like, how can we go around that? And one thing that I do wonder, and, is it a possibility that they, can supply a place where your child can go and rest, even if they can't sleep? Like, when we go back to the next best thing principle, if they can't sleep, are they able to have somewhere that is quiet, that is restful, that gives that sensory rest? Because like, especially with autistic people, we know that they take in more information in the world, and school is a very busy, and I want to say costly place. It's a very costly place to a lot of kids. And so having those rest periods can really influence their ability to learn. I mean, if that's really what they, even like mental health and all that stuff, they want them to learn, well, they're not going to learn if they're really tired. And the more breaks that they can have, the more that they can actually learn. And I think that sometimes we get that a bit like the wrong way around. They feel like the more that they're in class, the more that they will learn. Well, actually, no. If you're in class, but you're highly stressed, you don't have access to sucking up information.
Right. Yeah. You lose functional IQ. You lose, the more stressed you are, the more you recede into your less evolved parts of your brain. But I can go on and on about that one. So
I love it. We should have a conversation.
I will stop right there because this is one of my rabbit holes that I like to go down. I love talking about that kind of stuff.